Good morning students. Welcome to Triveni Memorial Senior Secondary School online classes. Students, today we are going to study one of our another chapter from class 7th in history. That is our chapter number 1st, Tracing Changes Through 1,000 Years. Whatever had already occurred in the past, that is 1,000 years ago, today we are studying about those facts in presence. The question is, how we come to know about these things, that what used to happen in earlier times or 1,000 years ago. So just let's see students. Firstly students, you can see here on page number 1, there is image of one map is given here. Then the question is, who formulated this map? Well, this map was formed by one of the great cartographer named Al-Idrisi. And this map also contained the image of the subcontinent of India, but this is controversial in nature. If we are going to compare this map with the today's India's map, we will found it totally different. Now first of all, we need to know, as I already told you, that Al-Idrisi was a great cartographer. So we need to know that who is a cartographer. You can see here students clearly, a person who makes maps is called as cartographer. Now according to Al-Idrisi, or according to this map, South Asia region or southern part of Indian map, and especially Sri Lanka, exist in the north part of the subcontinent. Whereas if we talk about today's era, what we can say that south, you can see on page number 2, this is the diagram. You can clearly see where South India or southern parts, and especially your Sri Lanka, is lying in the south part. But in the first map, South Asia or South India or Sri Lanka is lying in the north part. So both the two maps are totally different from one another. Now one more thing students, what is that? The language which is used in the map first, Arabian language or Persian language, Arabic language basically. You can see clearly here in this map that all the places are marked or are written in a particular language named the Arabic language. So in map first, in order to describe the name of the different places, Arabic language is used. Whereas if you can see here, different other places are showed on map number 2. As I already told you, Kannauj is showed here in this map, and Sri Lanka. This map too is clearly comparable, easily comparable with the India's map that we used to observe today. Because as I already told you, in this map also, Sri Lanka is lying in the south of the subcontinent of India, whereas in today's map also Sri Lanka is lying in the south region only. So what we can say, in early times, basically all the merchants or the traders who used to do sea voyage, that is, they used to travel from seas in order to search for different lands, in order to search for different trading activities, they prefer to use map number 2. Thereafter students, what we can say, new and old terminologies. Now we need to understand first of all the meaning of the word terminologies. Terminologies means terms. Now what does that mean? That means that there are certain terms which in the past had different meanings, and in today's era those terms have different meanings. So old terms, old terminologies, and new terms, new terminologies. Several examples related to that are given here in this chapter students. Now see, these terms not only varies, not only different in terms of grammar or in vocabulary, but they have different meaning too. Now we will study here students. If we talk about one of the term Hindustan, that is old term. If we talk about current terminology, we don't call India as Hindustan. We used to call Hindustan as India. That is your new terminology. So we need to understand how this terminology changed from Hindustan to India. So basically there is discussion here regarding the 13th century and regarding one of the chronicler, who is the chronicler ruler, you can say, named Miraj Siraj. He said that the word Hindustan or this new word India came from the contribution of the various states, which involves or came from the contribution of various areas which involves Punjab, Haryana and the lands of the Ganga and Yamuna. Thereafter, students, we used to distribute our area, our land on different bases. We used to categorize land on geographical factors. We used to categorize land on political frontiers factor. Like if I give you the example of Minajhe Siraj, what I told you, he classified the land, India, on the basis of political frontiers, political territories or political boundaries, like he involves the areas of Punjab, Haryana and the land between the Ganga and Yamuna. On the other hand, one other person is there and that person is known as Babur. Babur gave this name India as a term to India because he characterized India, he defined India on the basis of the culture prevailing in India, on the basis of geographical factors. Geographical factors means the plants, the animals, flora and fauna and other species, planets present in India. So what we have learned from here, different terminologies, like earlier it was Bharat, now Hindustan or Bharat, and now it is India. It came to India because people are seeing that particular land, India, on the basis of political frontiers, that is on the basis of political boundaries of land, as I already told you in the case of Punjab, Haryana and all. And second is in the case of Babur, who distribute the subcontinent on the basis of geographical factors or on the basis of geographical location, like the plants, the animals, or you can say flora and fauna present in our country. Now another person discussion is also here, and that is regarding Amir Khusro. He is one of the very famous poet, and he used this word Hind to describe Hindustan. So what he said that we are describing this word Hindustan because of the culture, because of the tradition of India. As I already told you that he was one of the poet. So he is describing India in the form of culture or traditions that took place in India. So first terminology that we took, old one is Hindustan and new one is India. Now let's take more example. Another terminology or another term is your foreigner. If we talk about the past time, what we used to say, a particular person is residing in a particular village. If any other person is coming from some other village or some other city, that person was called as foreigner for that person who was residing in earlier because he was not living in that place. But if we talk about today's time, what we can say, all the persons who are not Indians or who are from outside India, they are termed as foreigners. So again, term is same, foreigner, the term is same, but in the old time we use it in different way, and in the modern time we use it in the different way. And thereafter, students, what is said there, mostly in order to describe these terminologies, various languages are used, as I told you in the case of maps also, Arabic language or Persian language, etc. Then is historians and their sources. Very important topic of this chapter. As in the starting of the chapter, I already told this thing to you, that how do we come to know about history, what had happened in past. We come to know about what happened in past with the help of our historians, with the help of our archaeologists. They find certain evidences, they investigate various sources which told us that this is possible, that this might have happened in the past. Now the question is, what are these various sources that were found by our historians in the form of evidences? Now these sources can be in different forms. Historians found sources like coins, that you already know what are coins. Inscriptions. What are inscriptions? When anything is written on the hard surface, for example stone, when something is written on any hard surface or stone, then that particular writing is called as inscriptions. So these all are the sources: coins, inscription, architecture. What do you mean by architecture? Building designing. Building designs also told us that people were living in cemented houses, or people living in what kind of houses. And the another important source is your manuscripts. Now the question is, what are manuscripts? When a person writes fact with the help of his hands, that is manually on palm leaves, where manuscripts are written on palm leaves, then certain sources are called as manuscripts. So what we discussed? We discussed the various sources that historians found in the form of coins, in the form of inscriptions, in the form of manuscripts, and many more. And the next is archives. Now see, we have these sources, but we need certain place now where we can reserve these resources or sources, so that whenever in future we need them, we can easily avail those resources from there. So what are archives? Archive is basically a place where documents or manuscripts are stored. So the place where we used to store all these inscriptions or manuscripts is called as your archives, and it is very difficult to store these manuscripts, as I already told you. Why it is difficult? Because there are the chances that insects could rot, insects could eat those manuscripts, they may be spoiled because of the rain or some other human factors also, or while carrying from one place to another, chances are there that they may go lost or ruined. Thereafter student, what is sent here, you know, right now printing press are available, so it is very easy for us that if we want to get something copied, we can go to the photocopy shop and get it photocopied. But in earlier time, photocopy shops were, or printing press were not available. People used to write the facts manually in the form of manuscripts. Now what happened? That is the only reason that when these people tried to, you can see here, this is the original manuscript, and this person is copying this on this scribe from this text. Now see students, what will happen? You are having your own notebook, you know, you have written this point as in this form, you can easily understand it. But anyhow, if you lost your notebook, what will happen? You won't be able to get the content as clearly as you are getting from your notebook from the photocopied one. So all the content which was present or copied from this script contains certain differences while copying. That is what mentioned here. So always the original manuscripts differs from the copied manuscripts. It is but obvious that differences come in those two. The next is new social and political groups. With reference to time, with the change in time, various new social and political changes were appeared and were felt. Now what were these changes? Let's see. Firstly, during this period, new technologies came into existence. Now what were these technologies? People started or invented Persian wheel, and they used this Persian wheel for irrigation. People invented or people started using the spinning wheel, and they use a spinning wheel in weaving clothes. and they also discover firewoods and other technologies. They started growing different crops like potatoes, corns, chilies, etc. And so this is how we can say that there was a clear change in the economic, political and the social life of people who was arising in that era. Now what is said here, if we talk about the special category of people who were present at this timing being, then one of the special group of those people are Rajputra or Rajputs. You know, and nowadays where they were found, mostly in the area or in the state of Rajasthan, and you already know this thing that what we can say Rajputra, they always represent Kshatriya class or Kshatriya caste status. They were engaged in the process of fighting, or they were described themselves as the warriors or as the Kshatriyas. The next is some other groups of peoples along with Rajputra. Other kind of people or other groups were also found, like Sikhs were found, Marathas were found, Jats, Ahams, many more. These all are the caste categories that discovered during this time period politically. Now see students, as I already told you that people learned by this time how to grow crops. So if they learn to grow crops, they need the land where they can sow the crops, and also there is change in the habitat of the people. They started shifting to different places, and in order to have more land area available with them, people started clearing many forest areas. They used to clear the lands, they used to empty the forest land and use it for some other purposes. People started building monasteries, started building temples, and started involving themselves in all sort of other type of occupations. They became farmers, they became peasants, they started keeping cattle and started involving them in different part of the country. Now as I already told you, now what about those people or what about those tribal people? I said that they cleared the forest land. So definitely if they cleared the forest land and the forest land was emptied, when they shifted to the main part of the country, they searched some new source of occupation for them. So they engaged or they opt for new jati system for them. And generally what happened, Jati Panchayat was responsible for providing a particular jati to the particular group of person. Generally all these tribal groups, they were provided with the low caste people or low jati people, and there is certain chieftain in each village, and these chieftain were the rulers for these various jati groups, and they used to regulate them and they used to control them. And the next is the region and the empire. Now you can see here students, many large states or dynasties arrived by during this time period, like Cholas, Chelas, Pandyas. They came into existence by this time period. Now what is said here, a Sanskrit Prashasti, if we discussed this thing in the earlier chapter also. If we talk about Ghiyasuddin Balban, then he also discussed regarding the Sanskrit Prashasti, and what was Prashasti, that I already told you, in which words were written in the praise of the king, and in return the Brahmins were given awards for that. So that is what I mention here. All these dynasties, Cholas, Cheras, Pandyas or rulers, they started expanding their territories, expanding their regions, expanding their kingdoms. They started conquering different parts of Andhra, Kerala, Karnataka, and that is why they opt for very huge armies. You can see here also in this map, the different areas were covered by these dynasties or these rulers. So this is what I told you about this chapter, that all these are the changes that we observed in this time period or during this time period. Now what is said here, that I told you these dynasties came into existence. Which were these dynasties? Cholas, Cheras, Pandyas and many more. Now what is mentioned here, occasionally. What do you mean by occasionally? Occasionally means on a particular occasion, various dynasties like Cholas, Khaljis, Tughlaqs, Mughals, they were able to build an empire that was pan-regional, spanning diverse regions. What does that mean? They used to diversify their region. One big continent was there, they just distributed in some subcontinents, and then subcontinent was further diversified or further divided into different regions or different parts, so that they can have more control, more hold over these territories or these resources, and everything can be easily manageable. Thereafter, students, what is said, yes, this we have already discussed that which particular dynasty ruled for which kingdom, say Delhi, for how many times of year or for what particular time period. Now what is said here? It is said here that across most of the subcontinent, the regions were left with the legends of big and small states that had ruled over them. Yes, these dynasties involved big states under themselves and small states also under themselves, and that is how they are controlling the entire region under them. And as these dynasty emerged as a very powerful, you can say, shadow, or as a very powerful personality status in the society, they enjoyed good economy. Good economy means wealth, efficient amount of money, good amount of money, resources with them, elite culture, very good culture and tradition, and they spoke efficient language or their traditional language that was also there. The next is old and new religion. Now what is said here? Certain religions were there that were already existing in these dynasties or in these societies, but certain religions were there who emerged during this time period. Now what is said here? Let's see. All of you know this thing that what is religion? Basically, religion used to connect people socially and economically. Religion make any particular individual to practice or to follow his or her own belief without any other person interference in that. So people started worshipping new deities. New deities means people started worshipping new gods. They started constructed new temples by royalty, means by expending more and more money on this. They provide good infrastructure to these temples or these worshipping areas, and all the priests or the Brahmins who used to do these worshipping practice or used to provide teaching to the people, they were considered as a dominant group in the society. Why they were considered as dominant group in the society? Because whatever the priests are suggesting, the Brahmins were suggesting, it is believed that their teachings are of good quality, and whatever they are saying, that was absolutely right and not questionable at all. So these rulers or new rulers started searching for prestige, and their you can say architect style of temple or these precious buildings always contain the support of various patterns. Now the question is, what are patterns? An influential wealthy individual who supply other person. Influential means who is having this capability that he can influence the decision of other person, and he is wealthy as well. That particular person decision or those decisions were considered as patron. Generally all the learned man or noble man, as I gave you the example of priest or Brahmins, they were considered as patrons in this case. Now what is said here? I told you that new religion came into existence. People started following or worshipping or involving themselves in more and more holy religious practices. Holy religious practices means pure teachings. Like one of the example is given here regarding Muslims. You know that their holy book is Quran, and it signifies God Allah. So all the teachings of God Allah were mentioned in this book, and that is Quran. In the same way, other religions were also there who used to follow these practices. So students, this is what I told you, that how people used to start worshipping, how people used to practice different religion, started involving themselves in practicing different holy books. Like in case of Muslim, I told you that Quran is there. If we talk about Hindus, in Hindus the main holy book is your Gita, and many more other groups or other holy books are also there. Thereafter student, what is there? Let's just see or have a look at that. So what is mentioned here? We were talking about old and new religions. So what is there? Yes, the Muslims believed in the concepts of Allah, and thereafter many rulers also followed the patterns of Islam, means their teachings. In Islamic, like if we talk about Hindu, in Hindu, what is there? Priests are there, Brahmins are there. In the same case, if we talk about Islam religion, if we talk about Muslim religion, they have ulama, and these ulama are learned men. Like in case of Hindu, Brahmins are there. So people started following the words spoke by these ulama, their teaching. The people started following them without questioning them. Or prophets, who were prophets? They were religious scholars. Religious scholars means who used to describe people regarding a particular religion. So regarding Ali, who was the Prophet Muhammad's son-in-law, it is mentioned that he also used to describe the religion of Muslims to the Muslim community in an influential manner. So this is how people go to different schools. They started opting for new religions of Hindus, of Muslims and others. The next is thinking about the time and historical periods. Now what is said here? If someone asks you what is the date today, when did this event happen, you can clearly say, looking at the calendar, looking at the clock, at this time period or at this time being. But if we talk about past, what is said here? That they used to study the past, they used to divide the past into large segments, and these segments is on the basis of period. People used to classify past in the basis of time period, from this time period to this time period. So they characterize time on this basis. Now what is said here? One example is given here regarding this characteristic or periodic characterization. What is that? If we talk about Britishers, then British classify the time period into three parts. Time period into three parts of Hindu, Muslims and British. So according to Britishers, they said the time period of Hindu. What does that means? All the things or all the incidents that happens under Hindus, the time periods under Muslims and the time period under Britishers. So this is how they used to categorize time, they used to describe time, and these time only represent the various historical changes and how in all these three different time period significant development in the society, in the culture and in the whole subcontinent take place, how diversity exists, everything got characterized on the basis of these three things. And this I already told you that the periodization that we are doing today is very much different from the periodization that we used to do in the past. Because in the past people were engaged in other sort of activities, like they were hunter-gatherers, they were farmers, they were in towns and villages engaged in different sort of activities. Now one another particular study is there, in which firstly according to British it was divided into Hindu, Muslim and British. Now according to some other historian, this time period was divided into ancient, medieval and modern. Ancient, in ancient time period, very earlier these things used to happen in ancient time period. Medieval, in the mid time period, and modern, what had happened in history only, but not that much how much years ago, in recent history. So those things were mentioned in that. So these, in this way, periodic characterization is there, that is in ancient history, medieval history and modern history. And European trading companies followed this time period only for their trading, that is ancient, modern and medieval history. They used to describe all these things, as I already told you, in the medieval period, what had happened in the medieval period, in the modern period, where when these new technology arrives, like I gave you the example of Persian wheel, spinning wheel, of course this is related to history, but this comes under the category of modern history. So this was one of the another example for characterizing periods in history. So what we have discussed is people used to characterize history on two bases. Firstly, on the basis of under Hindus, under Muslims and under British, and secondly on the basis of ancient history, medieval history and modern history. So that's it about our topic, students. Now we will discuss about the question answers of this chapter. So let's start discussing the question answer, student. Our first question is, who was considered as foreigner in the past? I already told you, who came from other villages or other parts. Then is your true and false. First one is, we do not find inscription for the period after 700. That is false. They were there. Then is, the Marathas asserted their political importance during this period. That is true. The next is, forest dwellers were sometimes pushed out of their land with the spread of agriculture settlements. I gave you that example. That is also true. Then is, Sultan Ghiyasuddin Balban controlled Assam, Manipur and Kashmir. That is false. Then is your fill in the blanks. What we used to kept in archives, manuscripts were kept there. Then who was the 14th century chronicler? That is your Ghiyasuddin Jabani. Then is, what type of crops were found there? These were potatoes, corn, chilies, tea, etc. List some of the technological changes. I already told you, discovery of Persian wheels, discovery of spinning wheel, etc. What were some of the major religious development during this period? I told you, people started constructing new temples, they started involving them in new bhakti ideas and all. In what ways has the meaning of the term Hindustan changed over the century? Students, I clearly explained you this concept in detail, so you can write it on your own. Then, what does the term pan-regional empire mean? This is an important question. The term pan-regional empire means the empire which was spanning diverse regions. Diverse means different regions, which was expanded to a large area. Small region, and that was expanded into different areas and suddenly converted into large areas under different dynasties like Cheras, Cholas, Pandyas, etc. What are the difficulties historians faced in using manuscripts? That I already told you. It is not easy to copy the data exactly. Sometimes they were eaten by the insects and other problems also arises. How did historians divide the past into periods? This also I told you, on the basis, firstly, on the basis of Hindu, Muslims and British, and then on the basis of your ancient history, medieval history and the modern history. So students, that's it about our chapter. I hope you understood the concept very well. Thank you, students.